Good evening. Welcome in daily newspaper editorial audio program. Now headlines. Boomtown Blues, the Times of India. How to count for the future. An impeachment move with no winners, the Hindu. Now full editorials. Boomtown Blues, the Times of India. Jewar, UP is the latest in a long list of Indian village settlements suffering birth, birth pangs of town making. Times of India editorial. India's newest airport in Jewar, UP has made millionaires dollar variety of many farmers near Delhi. A few have Prioras to build more local solutions. Nithya Nandam Yogeshwaran. The writer is Professor, Geospatial Research Program, Takshila Institution. The world's largest census begins today. It will count us but also map us with a sharper spatial lens than before. Past censuses were not blind to geography, they used location codes and published many statistics at the village, town, and ward level, which have supported planning for decades, yet a persistent limitation remained. We often knew what existed, but not where it sat, not with a precis- precision that modern service delivery increasingly demands. Census 2027 by design moves closer to that missing layer by linking field collection to digital maps at the finer operational unit. A key shift is the move to a digital first census. Data will be collected through mobile apps available on both Android and iOS device with an option for citizens to self-enumerate via an online facility. This is not a cosmetic change. It alters how census is organized, supervised, validated, and eventually used. The operational design is structured into two phases: housing listing and housing operations, followed by population enumeration. This separation matters because it enables a more apparent distinction between the physical fabric of settlement and the demographic profile of the people living within them. It also provides a logical sequencing map and list first, then enumerates, plus it strengthens the foundation on which the second phase rests. Behind the scene, geospatial digital tools are expected to play a central role. A census management and monitoring system is intended to manage and track operations in real time, and a house listing block creator web map application is meant to help charge officers organize house listing blocks digitally. Blocks are not merely administrative conveniences; they are the bridge between the enumerators capture and what planners can analyze spatially. In a digital workflow, the block becomes a mapped unit that can support thematic layers such as housing conditions, access to drinking water, sanitation, building materials, or exposure to local risk. For policymakers and researchers, the value is substantial. Spatial layers make it easier to spot settlement patterns, infra deficit, and inequalities hidden by aggregate statistics. They can guide the placements of schools, Anganwadis, health outreach, bus route, and last mile utilities. They can also strengthen preparedness for floods, heat stress, and disease surveillance by pinpointing where vulnerability clusters and where a response capacity is weakest. However, the real value of a digital census begins only when every household record is anchored to the correct mapped unit. Recording responses on a phone is not the critical leap. Correctly placing those answers on the map is. In an exercise of this scale, slight inconsistencies in addresses, landmarks, or location tag can create avoidable mismatches later, complicating verification, deduplication, and integration across datasets. Smartphone-based location capture has improved. Modern devices can draw on multiple satellite navigation systems, and with sensible field guidance, location tagging can be broadly reliable across diverse settings. Still, reliability depends on conditions on ground, handset quality, and the enumerator's practice. That is why training become more than a formality. Repairing lacks of field staff has been a massive administrative undertaking, but it has also been an opportunity to build a practical geo geospatial discipline. Simple training on when to capture location, how to confirm it, and how to read basic maps can lift consistency without allowing field work. This is where DZPIN can add value as an additional attribute layer to the 2027 census. At heart, DZPIN addresses a narrow but persistent problem. A pin code is not an address, and free-form addresses often vary in spelling, abbrevi- abbreviations, and local naming conventions. DZPIN converts latitude and longitude into a short 10-character alphanumeric code tied to a small grid on the ground, roughly 4M by 4M, developed by the Department of Post in collaboration with IIT Hyderabad and NRSC of ISRO. It is designed to be easy to communicate and for systems to interpret. For census operations, a TG pin captured at the doorstep can serve as a standard location token across teams and devices, improving internal consistency and simplifying later checks. It can be beneficial in dense neighborhoods, informal settlements, and rapidly changing peri-urban layouts where where conventional addressing is incomplete or unstable. This does not replace the census block structure. Instead, it is completed by providing a precise point reference which can help anchor entries within the block and reduce ambiguity. The wider benefit comes after enumeration. Consistent location references help census layer connect more smoothly with other planning planning datasets such as utilities, health and education infra, mobility network, and disaster preparedness system. At the same time, a more precise location raises legitimate privacy and security concern. If location tokens are captured or at scale across must be controlled by rule, purpose must be clearly limited, and personal identifiers should be separated from location codes wherever feasible. Strong safeguards, including encryption, audit trails, and periodic independent security testing, should be treated as essential, not optional. To sustain public trust in a more data-driven state, a system with adequate accountability, well-rooted in constitutional values, will also support India's legitimate data sovereignty concern. The 2027 census could become one of the world's most sizable geospatial data collection effort, creating a national resource with rare analytical depth. It opens a wide window of opportunity for government, researchers, civil society, and enter- entrepreneurs to build solutions that are local, measurable, and accountable. Basically, the simple message is that the scale is historic, the upside is real, and the risks are manageable when location quality and data protection are treated as core design choices rather than afterthoughts. An impeachment move with no winners. The Hindu. The exclusion of even a single eligible voter due to the way the SIR has been conducted would legitimize the criticism of this arbitrary and aggressive exercise. Ashok Lav- Lavasa, former election commissioner and Union Finance Secretary of India. A win-win situation benefits all stakeholders even if a compromise is reached in search of a workable alternative. It could even be a way in which the winning side dilutes the losing side of perspective. It lost as a necessary price it paid for survival. The impeachment motion of the opposition parties against the chief election commissioner is one such example. It is a motion destined not to carry, yet its prime movers may not see the loss as a defeat, but can we see their loss as his victory. The move of the move of the opposition parties is doubtlessly dramatic. However, the question that needs to be pondered by the well-wishers of the Election Commission of India is what prompted them to don the gloves for the fight with no chance of victory. Perhaps sometimes no fights not to win but to wound the opponent. And the troubling part is that political parties treat the CEC as an opponent. Steadfast defiance. The move to impeach the CEC is a first in a history of an institution that is supposed to be a vanguard of the Indian electoral democracy. India built many institutions after attaining freedom and adopting a republican constitution. If anyone were to conduct an opinion poll on which of these institutions rendered the best service to Indian democracy with the highest degree of integrity, I have no doubt that the ECI will be our people's first choice, said Atal Bihari Vajpayee, the then Prime Minister at the ECI's Golden Jubilee celebration on January 17, 2001. And now, 25 years later, 193 parliamentarians of the opposition have submitted notices to an impeachment motion against the CEC, citing charges of par- partisan or discriminatory conduct, obstruction of investigation into electoral fraud, and disenfranchisement via the Special Intensive Revision (SIR) of electoral rules. The notice is as unprecedented as the manner in which the revision of electoral rules has been undertaken, despite serious challenge by most political parties except the ruling dispensation. Such an alignment of thinking disconcerted the opposition, which sharpened their attack against the CEC. The repeated press conferences by the leader of the opposition LOP exposing discrepancies in the electoral rules of states where elections have been held further eroded trust in the body, while the aggressive style and severity of the LOP's attack on the poll body, questioning its integrity, was surprising. What was more surprising was the poll body's ob- obduracy is not providing a credible response to the doubts raised on its functioning and impartiality. As the attack became more and more bitter, communication channels between the poll body and the opposition political parties seemed to choke. The, the nation has seldom seen such a relentless campaign against the CEC, even as the Supreme Court heard endless petitions against the decision. As the petition failed to yield any substantive relief, frustration mounted, and so did the CEC's apparent indifference. The CEC persisted with the SIR despite the fortnight-long board Adhikar Yatra just before the Bihar state elections. Now that there was no dialogue, the one the one between the poll body and the Trinamool Congress caused more rancor, culminating in the theoretical theoretical presence of Mamata Banerjee in the Supreme Court. Never before had a chief minister appeared in court arguing against the ECI's unfair decisions. The dharnas against the SIR in West Bengal or offices dying in the course of conducting the SIR failed to deter the CEC or change his avowed commitment to purity the electoral rules. The ECI invented the logical discrepancies tool that pitted electo electors against the AI use is to detect discrepancies. West Bengal saw 58 lakh 20,899 electors deleted at the draft stage and 60 lakh 6,675 under adjudication in the final list. But the ECI went on to announce election in the state where the late where the fate of nearly 10% electors remained undermined. It employed micro observers for finalizing the revised rules, something never done in the past. The Supreme Court also took the extraordinary step of appointing over 500 judicial officers to decide the fate of these electors in a short span. It is unusual for a constitutional body mandated with electoral rules preparation to involve another constitutional body in discharging its routine functions by disregarding the electors' voting right, which it was created to protect. The exclusion of even a single eligible voter due to the way the SIR has been conducted would legitimize the criticism of this arbitrary and aggressive exercise, a loss for the common man. However, does all of this justify the impeachment move? The answer depends on which side of the divide one stands. The crores of voters who figure in the final electoral roll might not protest, treating the tension and trauma during the revision process as part of the routine struggle that helpless citizens go through to secure their rights. The voice of those excluded doesn't count in the elections in any case. Eventually, the valid concern of protecting the right to vote turns into the lament of losers who are left with no choice but to resort to the ultimate constitutional weapon against the CEC. Meanwhile, the ECI has sounded the full fungal, asking players to contest against each other rather than against the referee. It is now in full control. The successful completion of the full process will justify all its decisions. Victors will exalt, losers will find reasons to complain. What what the nation would be left with will be a poll body in which the opposition, representing more than half the voting population, has expressed no confidence. Thank you.